What if the plants you spend every weekend pulling out of your yard are actually some of the most powerful natural medicines on the planet? Most people look at a dandelion or a patch of chickweed and see a problem. Researchers keep finding that these so-called weeds have been outperforming expectations in laboratories studying antimicrobial compounds, wound healing, and immune function. Today, we are covering 12 backyard weeds that traditional healers valued for centuries and that modern science is beginning to verify. The most important thing you can do after watching is stop pulling them. Number 1. Plantain. Plantain grows in almost every yard in America, and most people treat it like a stubborn weed that needs to go. That attitude runs directly against roughly 3,000 years of recorded medical history. Plantago major, the broadleaf plantain, was so valued by early European settlers that it spread wherever they traveled across North America, following human paths so reliably that Native American peoples gave it the nickname white man's footprint. They noticed it because it appeared everywhere people walked, but they also noticed what it could do. The plant carries a compound called aucubin, a glycoside with documented antimicrobial activity against a range of bacterial strains, including Staphylococcus aureus, one of the most common causes of skin infections. Research published in ethnopharmacology journals has confirmed real antibacterial inhibition from plantain extracts across multiple laboratory studies. Beyond the antimicrobial compounds, plantain contains allantoin, which promotes cell proliferation and wound healing, and bicoline, a flavonoid with strong anti-inflammatory effects. Traditional herbalists across Europe, Asia, and the Americas used fresh plantain leaves for centuries to draw out splinters, soothe insect stings, and treat infected cuts simply by mashing a leaf and pressing it against the skin. That traditional poultice application has enough research backing that wound care researchers have begun revisiting it seriously. Plantain thrives across USDA zones 3 through 9, which covers nearly the entire continental United States. It forms a low rosette of oval, ribbed leaves with parallel veins and tends to grow in compacted soil near paths, driveways, and lawn edges. Rather than pulling it up, consider letting a small patch remain. Young leaves are edible with a mild, slightly bitter flavor similar to spinach, and they can be added to salads, sautéed lightly in butter, or simmered into soups. The plant you have been stepping on for years may be one of the more useful things growing in your yard. Number 2. Dandelion. The dandelion is the most recognized weed in North America, and it is also one of the most thoroughly misunderstood. What most homeowners see as a lawn pest has been used as a medicinal plant for over 1,000 years in traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic practice, and across the folk medicine traditions of Europe and the Middle East. The scientific name, Taraxacum officinale, gives it away. The word officinale in botanical Latin specifically designates a plant that was historically kept in official pharmacies and apothecaries as a recognized medicine. Research on dandelion has grown considerably in the past 2 decades. Studies have demonstrated that dandelion extracts contain taraxacin and taraxacerin, bitter compounds with documented antibacterial activity, as well as luteolin and apigenin, 2 flavonoids that have shown inhibitory effects against both bacterial and viral pathogens in laboratory settings. The root has been studied for its effects on liver function and bile production, while the leaves have been analyzed for their very high content of vitamins A, C, and K, along with potassium and calcium at levels that rival many cultivated vegetables. European herbalists have used dandelion root as a digestive bitter and liver tonic for centuries, and that specific application has found support in modern research examining bile flow and digestive enzyme activity. Every part of the dandelion is edible, from the roots to the flowers, and all of it has been eaten by cultures that understood its value long before anyone thought to analyze it chemically. Dandelion grows across USDA zones 3 through 9, making it one of the most broadly distributed plants in the country. It is also one of the first flowers to bloom in spring, providing an early nectar source for bees before most other flowering plants have opened. The root can also be roasted and brewed as a coffee substitute with none of the caffeine. a practice common in Europe during wartime rationing and increasingly popular among people looking to reduce their caffeine intake today. If you are going to let one weed grow freely in your yard, this is the one that earns its place on both ecological and medicinal grounds. Number 3. Chickweed. Chickweed is the kind of plant that looks too delicate to be useful, with its small oval leaves, tiny white star-shaped flowers, and spreading, almost fragile-looking stems. That appearance is misleading. Stellaria media has been documented in European herbal traditions for centuries as a treatment for skin conditions, respiratory complaints, and joint inflammation, and the modern chemical analysis of the plant has offered reasonable explanations for each of those applications. Chickweed contains high concentrations of saponins, coumarins, and flavonoids, several of which have demonstrated antimicrobial activity in laboratory studies. Research published in the Asian Pacific Journal of Tropical Biomedicine found that chickweed extracts inhibited the growth of multiple bacterial strains, including E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus. The plant is also very high in vitamin C, iron, and calcium, making it nutritionally valuable in addition to its medicinal properties. Traditional European herbalists used chickweed poultices for eczema, psoriasis, and itchy skin conditions for centuries, and the cooling, anti-inflammatory action of fresh chickweed has been reported consistently across diverse folk medicine traditions. Nicholas Culpeper, the 17th century English herbalist whose writings shaped generations of American folk medicine, specifically recommended chickweed for inflammatory skin conditions and joint pain. Chickweed grows in USDA zones 4 through 11, and it tends to appear in cool, moist conditions, often in early spring and fall when most other plants are dormant. It grows in dense, low mats in gardens, lawns, and shaded beds. The leaves and stems are fully edible, with a mild, slightly grassy flavor that works well in salads, pesto, or as a cooked green. Fresh chickweed can be mashed into a simple poultice for skin irritation by blending a small amount and applying it directly to the affected area. It is one of the gentler and more accessible medicinal weeds on this list. Number 4. Purslane. Purslane is the weed that nutritional scientists keep discovering and then discovering again. Portulaca oleracea is one of the most widely distributed plants on Earth, growing as a low-spreading succulent with thick, fleshy leaves and small yellow flowers in lawns, garden beds, and cracks in pavement across the country. What sets purslane apart is not just its antimicrobial properties, but its nutritional density. It is the richest known plant source of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid, the same compound found in flaxseed and fish oil that drives much of modern cardiovascular nutrition research. Ancient Egyptian medicine incorporated purslane for skin and eye conditions. European apothecaries stocked dried purslane for centuries as a treatment for inflammation and urinary complaints. Modern research has confirmed antimicrobial activity from purslane extracts, with studies demonstrating inhibition against Staphylococcus aureus and Escherichia coli. The plant also contains high levels of malic acid, citric acid, and glutathione, one of the most important antioxidants produced by the human body. Purslane grows in USDA zones 4 through 11 and thrives in hot, dry conditions that would stress most other plants. It appears in mid to late summer when other cool season weeds have faded, and it can spread rapidly once established. One thing worth knowing, purslane contains oxalic acid, which is also found in spinach and beets. For most people, it is not a concern, but those who are prone to kidney stones or have kidney disease should eat it in moderation rather than in large quantities. For everyone else, purslane is safe, edible, and actually delicious, both raw and cooked, with a mild, slightly tart flavor that works well in salads, stir-fries, and soups. Number 5. Yarrow. Yarrow is one of the oldest documented medicinal plants in the world, with an archaeological record suggesting its use predates written history. The genus name, Achillea, is taken directly from the Greek hero Achilles, who, according to legend, used yarrow to treat the wounds of soldiers on the battlefield. That story is not simply mythology. Yarrow contains a compound called achilleol that has shown strong antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory activity in modern laboratory studies. It also contains apigenin, a flavonoid with well-documented antibacterial effects, and alkaloids that appear to support blood clotting at wound sites, which is consistent with its long historical use as a wound herb. Research published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology has confirmed yarrow's antimicrobial activity against a range of pathogens, including strains that have shown resistance to conventional antibiotics in laboratory testing. Native American peoples used yarrow extensively across dozens of tribal traditions as a wound poultice, a fever treatment, a digestive remedy, and a pain reliever. It appears in the ethnobotanical records of more tribal groups than almost any other North American plant. Yarrow grows USDA zones 3 through 9 and is one of the most adaptable plants in the country, tolerating poor soil, drought, and full sun with equal ease. It forms feathery, fern-like leaves and flat-topped clusters of tiny white or pale yellow flowers that bloom from late spring through summer. Two things worth knowing before you work with yarrow. The plant belongs to the Asteraceae family, the same family as ragweed and chrysanthemums, and people with allergies to those plants can sometimes react to yarrow as well. Additionally, yarrow is not recommended during pregnancy, as some of its active compounds have historically been used to stimulate uterine contractions. For most healthy adults, it is one of the most useful and versatile medicinal plants that grows wild in American yards. Number 6. Stinging nettle. The first thing most people remember about stinging nettle is the sting, and that memorable experience is usually enough to make them cut it down at every opportunity. That is unfortunate, because Urtica dioica is one of the most nutrient-dense and medicinally active plants that grows wild in the United States. Nettle has been used in European, Asian, and Native American herbal traditions for centuries as a treatment for arthritis, allergies, urinary complaints, and infection, and modern research has offered solid support for several of those applications. The plant contains flavonoids including quercetin and camphorol, both of which have documented antibacterial activity, as well as polysaccharides that have shown immunomodulatory effects in laboratory research. Research published in Phytotherapy Research found that nettle extracts showed clear antimicrobial activity against both gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. The anti-inflammatory applications of nettle are also well studied, with trials showing that freeze-dried nettle leaf was rated as effective as antihistamines by a majority of participants for allergy symptom relief. Nutritionally, nettle stands out, containing more iron per gram than beef, along with high levels of calcium, magnesium, potassium, and vitamins A, C, and K. Cooking or drying nettle completely neutralizes the sting and makes it fully safe to eat. Nettle grows across USDA zones 3 through 10 and tends to appear in moist, nitrogen-rich soils near streams, fence lines, and disturbed ground. When harvesting, use gloves to protect your hands from the stinging hairs on the leaves and stems. Once blanched in boiling water for 30 seconds, the sting disappears entirely, and the plant can be used like spinach in soups, pestos, teas, and side dishes. The plant you have been avoiding in the corner of your yard may be one of the more powerful medicinal greens available to you for free. Number 7. Burdock. Burdock is the plant responsible for the invention of Velcro. The Swiss engineer Georges de Mestral examined the hooked seed heads of Arctium lapa under a microscope after they stuck to his dog's coat during a walk, and was inspired to create the fastening system that changed manufacturing. But long before burdock inspired engineering, it was being used in Chinese, Japanese, European, and Native American herbal medicine as one of the most prized medicinal roots available. The root of burdock contains a compound called arctogenin, a lignin with documented antimicrobial, antiviral, and anti-inflammatory properties that has attracted considerable attention from pharmacological researchers in recent years. Studies published in peer-reviewed journals have confirmed that arctogenin shows inhibitory activity against several bacterial strains and has demonstrated antiviral effects against influenza and other respiratory pathogens in laboratory models. Traditional Chinese medicine has used burdock root as a blood purifier and lymphatic herb for over 2,000 years, and European herbalists used it similarly as a treatment for skin conditions including eczema and psoriasis, chronic infections, and sluggish lymphatic function. The root is also a prebiotic food, rich in inulin, a fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria and supports immune function from the inside out. In Japanese cuisine, burdock root is called gobo and is eaten regularly as a vegetable, braised, stir-fried, and added to soups and rice dishes. Burdock grows in USDA zones 3 through 7, preferring deep, rich soil where its substantial taproot can develop fully. It is a biennial, producing a rosette of very large leaves in its first year and the familiar burr-covered seed heads in its second. The root is best harvested in fall of the first year, when it is tender and most flavorful. Peeled and cooked, it has an earthy, slightly sweet flavor that works well in stews and roasted vegetable dishes. Number 8. Lamb's quarters. Lamb's quarters has fed hungry people for thousands of years, and it still grows in yards across the country today as a weed that most homeowners spray without a second thought. Chenopodium album, also called wild spinach or goosefoot, has been found in archaeological sites dating back 8,000 years across North America, Europe, and Asia, where it appears to have been cultivated or actively managed for food long before the era of agricultural records. The plant contains flavonoids including quercetin and rutin, both of which have documented antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties, and its essential oils have shown activity against Staphylococcus aureus and E. coli in laboratory studies. Nutritionally, lamb's quarters punches well above its weight. It contains more calcium than milk, more iron than spinach, and high levels of vitamins A, C, and K, along with riboflavin and niacin. Lewis and Clark documented that native peoples along their route ate lamb's quarters regularly, and ethnobotanical records show it was used by tribes across the continent both as a food and as a mild medicinal herb for digestive complaints and intestinal parasites. Lamb's quarters grows in USDA zones 3 through 9 and thrives in disturbed, nitrogen-rich soil, which is why it appears abundantly in garden beds and near compost piles. It is an annual that germinates in spring and can grow quite tall through summer if left undisturbed. One important note, like purslane and spinach, lamb's quarters contains oxalic acid. People with a history of kidney stones or kidney disease should eat it in moderation, and cooking reduces the oxalic acid content significantly compared to eating large amounts raw. For most people, young leaves cooked like spinach are mild, nutritious, and one of the more overlooked free vegetables available in any American backyard garden. Number 9. Common mallow. Common mallow carries a scientific name that reads almost like an editorial comment. Malva neglecta means neglected mallow, and it is a fair description of how this plant tends to be treated in American yards, despite a long and well-documented history in traditional medicine across multiple cultures. The mallow family's healing properties center on mucilaginous compounds, primarily a type of soluble fiber that forms a thick gel when mixed with water. This mucilage coats irritated mucous membranes in the throat, digestive tract, and urinary system, reducing inflammation and providing a protective barrier that discourages bacterial attachment. That mechanism works alongside the plant's documented flavonoid content, which includes compounds with direct antibacterial activity against Staphylococcus aureus and other common pathogens. Ancient Egyptian medicine used mallow as a soothing treatment for respiratory complaints. Greek physicians, including Dioscorides, wrote about it in the 1st century. European apothecaries stocked it for centuries as a treatment for coughs, sore throats, and urinary infections. And those applications appear consistently in the medical literature of virtually every culture that had access to the plant. Mallow grows in USDA zones 4 through 9 and is typically found in lawns, garden edges, and disturbed areas. It forms a spreading, low-growing plant with round, scalloped leaves and small pink to lavender flowers with 5 petals that bloom from spring through fall. The entire plant is edible. Young leaves can be added to salads and develop a pleasant, mucilaginous texture when cooked that has been compared to okra. The small, round seed pods, called cheeses because of their shape, are edible and mildly flavored. Mallow tea, made from the dried leaves and flowers, is one of the most traditional soothing throat remedies in European herbal medicine and remains popular for that application today. Number 10. Wild violet. Wild violet is one of the most visually beautiful weeds in the American lawn, and it is also one of the most nutritionally impressive. Viola sororia and its close relatives produce the small purple and white flowers that appear in early spring, and most homeowners either tolerate them for their looks or work to eliminate them as lawn invaders. What most people do not know is that wild violets contain more vitamin C per gram than oranges, and more vitamin A per gram than many cultivated leafy greens. That nutritional density alone sets them apart from nearly every other plant on this list. The antimicrobial connections run through the plant's flavonoid content, including rutin and quercetin, both of which have documented antibacterial and antifungal activity. Violets also contain cyclotides, a class of peptide compounds being actively studied for their antimicrobial and antiviral properties, with researchers describing some members of this class as among the most potent naturally occurring antimicrobial compounds identified in recent decades. Traditional European herbal medicine used wild violet leaves and flowers as a treatment for respiratory infections, skin conditions, and general inflammation for centuries. And Native American tribes used various violet species for headaches, respiratory complaints, and wound care. Wild violets grow across USDA zones 3 through 9 and tend to establish themselves in the partial shade areas of lawns, under trees, and along garden borders. Both the leaves and flowers are fully edible. The flowers can be added to salads for color, used to make a naturally colored violet tea that shifts to pink when lemon juice is added due to the pH-sensitive anthocyanin pigments, or crystallized with sugar for cake decorations. The young leaves are mild and slightly mucilaginous, similar to mallow. Wild violet is one of the few weeds that rewards you simply for letting it grow. Number 11. Self-heal. Self-heal has one of the most direct names in the botanical world, and it did not earn that name by accident. Prunella vulgaris has been used in European, Chinese, and Native American traditional medicine for hundreds of years, with the same core application appearing across cultures that had no contact with each other: the treatment of wounds, sores, and infections that refuse to heal on their own. English herbalists gave it the name self-heal because the plant seemed to accelerate healing when applied as a poultice, and the modern pharmacological analysis of this plant has offered a compelling explanation for that observation. Self-heal contains rosmarinic acid, one of the most well-studied antimicrobial plant compounds known to researchers, with documented activity against a wide range of bacterial and viral pathogens. It also contains ursolic acid, a compound that has shown inhibitory effects against methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, the antibiotic-resistant infection known as MRSA in laboratory studies. Traditional Chinese medicine, where self-heal is known as xia ku cao, has used it for liver support, eye inflammation, and swollen lymph nodes for over 2,000 years. Korean research published within the last decade has confirmed antiviral activity from self-heal extracts against herpes simplex virus and influenza in laboratory models. Self-heal grows across USDA zones 4 through 9 and is particularly common in lawns that are not treated with herbicides. It forms low-growing mats of oval leaves with square stems characteristic of the mint family, and produces distinctive purple flower spikes in summer that are easy to identify once you know what to look for. Self-heal is one of the safer medicinal weeds on this list, with no notable toxicity concerns for most adults. It can be used as a tea, a tincture, or applied as a fresh poultice directly to cuts, sores, and inflamed skin. The young leaves are also mild and edible, and the dried flowers make a pleasant herbal tea that carries the same rosmarinic acid that gives the plant its medicinal value. Number 12. Mugwort. Mugwort closes this list as perhaps the most traditionally revered and medicinally complex weed that grows in American backyards. Artemisia vulgaris has been used in European and Asian herbal medicine for well over 2,000 years, with its history touching everything from culinary traditions in Germany and Korea to sacred ceremonial use by indigenous peoples across North America. The antimicrobial properties of mugwort are among the most well-documented in the Artemisia genus, a plant family that also gave humanity artemisinin, the most important antimalarial compound discovered in the 20th century. Mugwort contains camphor, cineole, and volatile compounds with strong antimicrobial and antifungal activity, along with flavonoids and sesquiterpene lactones that have shown activity against a range of bacterial pathogens in research settings. Traditional Chinese medicine has used mugwort for centuries in moxibustion, the practice of burning the dried herb near acupuncture points to stimulate healing responses, a technique that remains widely practiced worldwide. European folk medicine used it to treat digestive complaints, stimulate appetite, and address menstrual irregularities. Mugwort grows in USDA zones 4 through 9 and can become quite vigorous once established, growing into tall, silvery-leafed stands with a distinctive sage-like fragrance. Two important things worth knowing before working with this plant. Mugwort contains thujone, a compound that is toxic in large amounts and should never be consumed as an essential oil or in highly concentrated extract form. And very importantly, mugwort is strongly contraindicated during pregnancy. Its traditional use as an herb to stimulate menstruation is well documented across multiple cultures, and that effect means it carries a serious risk of miscarriage if used internally during pregnancy. For healthy, non-pregnant adults, using the herb in small quantities as a culinary addition or a topical application, it is a very different matter from concentrated use, but the warnings above apply firmly. If these weeds are already growing in your yard, you now have 12 good reasons to put the weed killer away. The most effective medicinal garden in America might already be growing in your lawn without any effort on your part. Give this video a thumbs up if it changed the way you see your backyard, and subscribe to Evergreen Garden so you never miss a video on the plants, foods, and natural practices that have been solving problems long before anyone knew to study them. We will see you in the next one.